Hi everyone, this is Miss Cornell, and today we will be learning about the cell cycle in cancer. I would like to first direct your attention to the diagram here, as we have briefly learned about interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis in previous videos. However, this lesson will cover the cell cycle as a whole from beginning to end, starting with the 3 parts of interphase, the 4 phases of mitosis, and ending with cytokinesis. Before we begin, let's review some of the basics. We have already learned about the cell, which is the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism. We know that DNA is genetic information that you receive from your parents, and this determines the characteristics you are going to have, such as hair color, eye color, if you can roll your tongue, if you have a widow's peak, all things that we will be learning about in our upcoming genetics unit. Remember, in eukaryotes, DNA is held inside the nucleus, and therefore we are eukaryotic organisms. There are different forms to your DNA. First, we have the double helix, which is the shape of DNA, which looks like a twisted ladder, as you can see here in the picture on the right. Chromosomes, here in the middle left, are tightly packed DNA that is used for cell division, forming an X shape. And chromatin is a version of DNA that is loosely packed so it can be replicated, generally looking like a mass of spaghetti noodles, as I would describe it. Here in the picture, starting on the left, you can see a chromosome, one chromosome, or a homologous chromosome. As you unwind it, or zoom in on it, you can see that mass of spaghetti, and as it unwinds, the DNA unwinds, you can see that this blue line here represents the DNA, if we go all the way through. The DNA is wrapped around these purple circles, which are actually called histones, and they are proteins. So as we unwind, we can see that double helix. So we're going from largest, the chromosome being tightly packed, to the smallest, the DNA, on the other end of the picture. The cell cycle is defined as a process that takes place in a cell leading to its division and duplication of its DNA. DNA replication is when the DNA replicates or doubles in its amount, and this process produces 2 genetically identical daughter cells. In this diagram here, you can see G1, S, and G2. All 3 of these phases are part of interphase, which is followed by mitosis, and then cytokinesis, where it forms the 2 identical daughter cells. The 5 phases of the cell cycle are what make up interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. In yellow here, steps 1, 2, and 3 are the parts of interphase. G1 is where primary growth happens and is the major portion of the lifespan of a cell. This is where everything except for the DNA is being replicated. Organelles and different parts of the cell are being replicated during this part of the cell cycle. The S phase is where the DNA is replicated. So for example, if an organism has 12 chromosomes, it's being doubled to 24. In humans, we have 46, which is being doubled to 92 during this phase of the cell cycle. G2 is the last part of interphase. This is called the secondary growth, and where the cell prepares for division, that final step before it moves on to the M phase. So again, the parts in yellow are all happening during interphase. Step 4 is the M phase, or mitosis. This is the actual cell division where 2 new cells are being made. It could be, determined as cloning because it's the same number of chromosomes as the mother cell. And it finally finishes off with cytokinesis, where the cytoplasm is dividing in half and creating those 2 new cells. A very important reminder, and maybe helps make this process make sense, is that 90% of the cell's life is spent in interphase. So those 3 phases, G1, S, and G2, is where the cell spends the majority of its lifetime. Only 10% is spent in mitosis, so therefore a very fast part of its life is happening during prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Learning about the cell cycle moves us into what cancer and tumors are. So we know that the cell cycle is the splitting of cells and making new cells. So what is cancer? Cancer is a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body. So when this is happening, or why it's happening, is because a cancer cell is ignoring checkpoints. There are checkpoints at the G1 and the G2 phases of interphase, and a cancer cell ends up ignoring those, and those are unable to regulate the cell growth, and the cell begins to grow out of control. They just continually divide over and over again. And this results in tumors or large masses of cells that can also result in death, because there's growth hormones that get secreted by the cancer cells, and they actually take away nutrients and starve out those normal cells and actually end up killing them. So another thing is, how does it happen? So cancer can be genetic and environmental. Environmental meaning just outside of the body, not necessarily outside. There are genes like the BRCA1 gene, which is the gene for breast cancer that people can be tested for. And then some of those environmental factors could be things like the food that you're eating. If you have excessive sunburns, you can end up with skin cancer, smoking, different things like that that can cause cancer that you're doing outside of your body. I hope that this helps bring all of the parts of the cell cycle together for you after seeing the different videos and this kind of wrapping everything up.